Coming into this weekend, tensions are running awfully high between the race organisers and the Master Cup Series officials. That being because the race organisers decided to circumvent the new Super Speedway rules by running this race without restrictor plates. And that hasn't gone too well over with the Master Cup Series officials, and it's very doubtful that this track will be on the calendar in 2010. Also, more controversy in the paddock after the qualifying race when Kurt Walker basically tried to create a hole where there wasn't one, taking out several cars, including both his teammates. And his Tyrone Stanley, who drives, of course, for Camelot Racing, the same team Kurt Walker drives for, wasn't very impressed about this, confronted Walker in the pit lane, and a big brawl ensued. And Stanley saying that Kurt Walker's 2 Isla championships were because Walker has the most money of every driver in the Isla paddock. And not quite sure I agree with that, but regardless, tensions are running awfully high at Camelot Racing, and I'm not too sure Arthur Thomas knows how to deal with it, because he always ran a very clean and very organized team. So the futures of Stanley and Walker in that team are now very much questionable. And in fact, Dan Klezel's future may be questionable as well, because he was firing shots at Stanley as well. So things are running awfully high. Tensions are running awfully high, rather, at the Camelot Racing stable, and it'll be interesting to see how they finish out the year. Dan, off to you. Thank you, Lance. The Clutch Pole Award for the New York Auto Ring went to Scott Bates in car number 88, just pipping his teammate Johnny Ada for the pole. On the second row, you'll notice Marcus Leonard and Woody Watts, their teammates at James Dalton Racing, and then Tony Durbin and Alan Hodges break the Noah's Ark formation on the grid. Great start by Scott Bates leading into the first turn with Marcus Leonard. Not such a good start from him. In fact, Bates got a better start than the rest of the field. Big lead by Scott Bates coming out of the first 2 turns. Joseph Howard is back in the TM Master Cup Series in car number 17. The 3-time Master Cup Series champion qualified 11th and was, well, marching towards the front. A fantastic start of the race for Howard, who's been sitting out a couple of races due to injuries. Tony Durbin in the 33 car makes a big move to the inside, bringing Ryan Naraki with him. Behind Naraki is Gary Edwards. All 3 of those cars are teammates. And then Joseph Howard, right behind Edwards, is another SARS. He had SARS all lined up in the bottom, and they began to challenge Scott Bates for the lead. Marcus Leonard hung out to dry in his Inglesby. Last year was a big year for James West. He won his first ever TM Master Cup Series race in his first ever start in his second attempt. Of course, he failed to qualify for Daytona last year. West was used on the promotions for this race, and he wasn't running terribly well, running in the midfield and wasn't too quick in any of the practice sessions. He was even slower than his teammate Leon Keniston, who is from this area. Another driver from this area is Tom Delgado, with a sponsor which is a radio station in the New York area. He wasn't doing them justice based on his qualifying effort. However, on his race effort, it was quite the opposite. He had made up the most ground out of everybody in the first 5 laps. His drive is very much in doubt for next season, with the new rules that are supposedly going to dictate that only 1 manufacturer per team. Delgado could be left out of the loop, and so could Mike Whitmore in the 73 car. Whitmore's drive very much in doubt, even though he has a race win to his name, and the car right behind him, the green car, Danny Savin, may also be looking for a drive. Danny Savin is a 2-time Cariello winner, so we would expect Savin could slot in somewhere in 2010. Tony Durbin was, well, once he got into the lead, he seemed unassailable. Alexis Rainsford got up to him, and Tony Durbin did what he did to several other cars. Drag him up to the high side, and then hang him out to dry. Chris Johans in the 22 car slots into second, even though he was running third. Damian Snyder in the 11 decides to drop back through the field. Super Speedway Racing, very much a chess match and all about positioning your car. Snyder figuring that if he apparently would slide out of line, then he could get back into line at the perfect moment, which of course is the very last lap of the race. Chris Johans, a 2-time Marley champion, having a better run than usual. He's had several good finishes and is high in the point standings, has been driving too well. Here in the line, we have 3 drivers who haven't really been doing so well this season. Cyrus Laterza in the 74, Leon Keniston in the brown number 3, and Justin Brooks in that blue car up there, number 12. There are many expectations from all 3 drivers. Laterza, of course, won at Daytona a couple years ago. Leon Keniston is a short track racer from this area, teamed up with James West. And Justin Brooks has had several good drives throughout his career, but never really lasted in one car for the whole season unless it was his own. Good to see all 3 cars towards the front of the leaderboard. Cyrus Laterza won that Daytona race coming from the very back of the field. In fact, Cyrus Letaire's car was so good, it was the only car that could catch Tony Durbin. And as you're going to see coming into turn number 2 and out of turn 2, it was the only car that could actually pass Tony Durbin. Coming out, he's got himself perfectly in position. Coming down the back straightaway, here comes a 74 car. He's going to slip to the inside, and that's all she wrote. Letaire's was able to complete the pass coming into turn 3. 5 days before this race, it was Dale Roswell's 62nd birthday, making him the oldest driver to ever lead the TM Master Cup Series point standings. Roswell was taking things easy in the early going, hanging towards the back of the field and waiting for everything to settle out. Roswell, of course, turned 62 on July 7th, and right in front of him is Ian Cooper, and you see Kurt Pliskin back there as well, some drivers who tend to do well at these kinds of tracks. Marcus Leonard in the 02 car, a great qualifying effort, very poor start. He's going to have another go at the lead, and right there is Drew Eisenman in the 31, who is currently leading the pack. Eisenman ran very well at Karyala, a track which is pretty much the exact opposite to this track. First caution was on lap number 14. Todd Wlodarczyk attempts to make it 4 wide, and of course, as we all know in super speedways, going 4 wide is a great idea. Not. It creates a big pileup. Palmer Styles, hard impact into the wall. Arto Kekkonen gets turned around. James West, Ian Cooper, Chris Johans is in there. Johans slides up the track into Kurt Pliskin there. Dale Roswell in it. Rachel Rainsford in it. Those cars are first and second in the point standings coming in. Wlodarczyk just tries to make it 4 wide. No room. He turns Styles, gets Carlos Donzello in there as well. Ian Cooper, Rachel Rainsford. I already mentioned those two. Zach Duff in the Lego car. What is Chris Johans doing? Just turning suddenly to the right and hitting Kurt Pliskin for apparently no reason. There's Johans getting into the wreck, trying to get through it. Then runs into Palmer Styles again. Then suddenly makes a hard right turn. What was that all about? Well, the officials definitely called him to the hauler for that move. And his spotter. Here's another aerial view, this time of the whole wreck. And here's Wlodarczyk just forcing it 4 wide where it shouldn't have been 4 wide. Donzello turns around Kekkonen, and it all goes to madness. Wlodarczyk and Donzello were both called to the hauler for the officials to learn what they thought happened. Penalties are not expected. Here's onboard Ian Cooper, hard hit into the side of Cooper's car. Damian Snyder got a big chunk of that as well. And Cooper's already been out of a race from injuries. However, it was only 1 round and he stayed out Brands Hatch. We don't have a word from Palmer Styles' medical condition. However, Cooper climbed out of the car under his own power, thankfully. Marcus Leonard in the 02 car led the field back to the green, with Drew Eisenman sitting in second place. Eisenman, a very strong run from him. He is on a great streak so far. The 31 car was actually failing to qualify for some races earlier in the season. In third is Stephanie McGlynn in the 52 car. McGlynn last season, the queen of crash, crashed out of, I believe, 2/3 of the races last season. Some of them of her doing, most of them not. Alan Hodges and Scott Steudler having fantastic runs. So is Gary Edwards and John Parker Jr. Lauren Roth in the 39 car is in this lead pack as well. So are both the Team EFR cars. Alan Hodges from Wales has not won a race in 3 years. His last win was the final round of 2006, or second to last round, excuse me. Johnny Ada at the back of the field in the 04 car. Ada outshining Scott Bates, his teammate in this part of the race. There we see David Krikorian in the 9 also having a good run. Tony Durbin being able to stick with this lead pack as well. There's Lauren Roth, who won at Daytona, and Anthony Evans in the 10 having a quiet run so far inside the top 15. A lot of names you didn't expect to see at the top of the leaderboard at this stage of the race. You see a lot of dicing going on at the front of the pack. That's between the Marcus Leonard car, and I believe that is the Parker. No, it's Parker Jr. at the bottom of the screen. That's one of the national racing cars, so that's got to be Drew Eisenman. Eisenman got shuffled out of the lead, and here comes Scott Steudler in the 26. He would be able to lead, and he has not won a Master Cup Series race. The Pennsylvania native was looking for a good, strong run, looking for his first career win, and that could very well be on the cards tonight because Steudler is having a fantastic drive so far this year, and he's been so close so many times in his career. A potential joker in the deck could be Brian Sendak in the 40. He has no damage, he's sitting 14th. Big moment here for Lauren Roth, almost a big wreck as he gets forced up into the wall, and he's going to lose the lead pack. Brian Sendak, you see, when all the lead cars lifted, Sendak caught up to the lead pack. overtaking his teammate and leaving Roth hung out to dry, sitting back in 14th place. It's where it left Lauren Roth, that is, back in 14th, or 13 cars, obviously, in the lead pack. Roth was then caught by the cars in the second pack, headed up by Tom Delgado, Stuart Sandoval, Lewis Kingston, and Leonard Roderick. All these cars have no damage, but are racing so aggressively they're not really making any gains on the lead group. You see Justin Brooks and the 21 car is also in there. Lapped cars are always a problem at these tracks, and Chris Allen was the first one they came across. Allen, of course, got some damage in that accident from the big stack-up in the whole field. See, everyone gets by him except Tony Durbin. Durbin has a bit more problems getting by him than most. There's Anthony Evans going by. Scott Steudler in the 26. That's one of the EFR cars. That is Bates in the 88. Tony Durbin still held up behind Chris Allen. And here comes Brian Sendak and Alan Hodges in the 13 car. More lapped cars. This time Zach Duff would get in the way of the leaders, and he would not be as easy to pass with everyone running too wide like that. Todd Wodarczyk would be next. The second group of cars would have a much easier time getting around some of these lap cars, seeing as they were running mostly single file. However, the aggressive nature of most of these drivers meant that they weren't really gaining much ground on the leaders. In fact, they were losing ground sort of by default, but they weren't losing as much ground. Rachel Rainsford has an interesting way of getting out of the way of the leaders, driving into the pit lane. However, that brought a new dimension into the race. You see Danny Savin hitting the pit lane a little bit earlier than everyone else. Green flag pit stops at a super speedway, something we haven't seen in I can't remember how long. Scott Bates hits the pits along with Drew Eisenman, and then Alan Hodges leads the rest of the pack down through the pit lane. Hodges, a fantastic drive so far. Some contact entering the pits, though. Stephanie McGlynn trying to enter, and here comes Gary Edwards. Brake pedal is not being used, apparently, as Edwards slams into the back of McGlynn's car, doing a lot of damage to the rear end. McGlynn not too happy about this. Gary Edwards was having a great run, but his apparent brain fade, it could be problems with the brakes in that car, but it's not very likely. Just had a bit of brain failure, and that appeared to cost him a shot at winning this race. Alan Hodges was the leader after pit stops, but, well, when you're all by yourself in the lead at a super speedway, that doesn't last, especially when a big pack of cars is catching you, and that was certainly the case, as you see a big pack of cars behind him. Debris caution on lap 50 bunched up the field for them, though. Everyone dove into the pits again, leaving Drew Eisenman as the leader and David Krikorian in second. A slew of cars one lap down with Wodarczyk, Edwards, Whitmore. Eisenman, good jump on the restart over DK and was able to clear the lapped car of Wodarczyk without any problem at all. Leading into the first turn, Eisenman was able to sweep down to the bottom of the track, which is the preferred line around here. This track very much a one-groove racetrack, unlike Daytona, let's say. John Parker Jr. was able to stick with the leaders. A fantastic drive from Parker, whose best finish in the Master Cup Series is third, which he did at Brazil. Scott Steudler and as well, and you see these top 5 cars? Only Alan Hodges has a Master Cup Series victory to his name. Johnny Ada was able to hang with the leaders for a while. However, Ada wasn't really having as good of a car as he thought. He was reporting some problems with the car, and it would actually involve him dropping off the pace just a little bit. Of course, see Ada with the second group of cars there. Justin Brooks in the 12 car still also very much in contention here. If he can only catch a quick yellow, he might be able to catch up to the leaders and hopefully have a shot at winning this thing. Brooks, many people think, could actually score a victory this season if he's able to qualify. That's his big Achilles heel. Gary Edwards, who had run into Stephanie McGlynn, would, well, sort of get in everyone's way. As once the field got on a long green flag run, he decided to, well, get in the way because he's a slow lap car with front end damage. And he's doing a fantastic job of blocking Brian Sendak. Brian Sendak not necessarily, well, the cleanest of drivers as far as vocabulary is concerned. Alan Hodges was jumped into the lead during the closing stages of the race, with Anthony Evans in second and John Parker Jr. making a move around Evans for second. Parker then was able to sweep into second and then made a move for the lead. Tom Delgado stuck with Alan Hodges, his manufacturer buddy. Those two cars both CM Novas. Scott Steudler, however, was going to go for the win. Almost wrecked his boss coming up the racetrack. However, Hodges waved it off. It's just a racing incident. As Steudler gets passed by everyone else after making it 3 wide, leaving John Parker Jr. and Danny Savin in the lead. However, there's one problem. With just 2 laps to go, Danny Savin had to pit for fuel, something Savin did 2 laps before everyone else. A big disappointment, seeing as Savin is a New York native as well, so the rock star bows out early, leaving John Parker Jr. out in the lead by himself with 1 lap to go, and Tony Durbin and Anthony Evans hounding him down. 2 very good superspeedway drivers against, well, someone who's making his second superspeedway start in this series. Parker Jr. coming down the back straightaway. Tony Durbin and Anthony Evans are catching him, with Delgado in 4th and Hodges in 5th. Coming into 3 and 4, Parker has got the lead. Durbin is right on his bumper. Durbin is going to have to make one last move to get by him. He's got 1 shot. He's making a move. Is it going to be enough? Durbin, Parker. No! Parker takes his win. He takes his first career victory by beating Tony Durbin by about a nose and a half, and Parker celebrates with burnouts in his own unique style. John Parker Jr. takes his first career win. Tony Durbin finishes 2nd. Anthony Evans in 3rd. Tom Delgado, a fantastic drive by the New York boy. Delgado, his best finish in the Master Cup Series is 3rd, which he, I believe, did here at this race last year. Alan Hodges finishes 5th. Scott Steudler in 6th. Drew Eisenman in 7th. Stuart Sandoval in 8th. Leonid Roderick, a quiet run through the field. He winds up 9th. After several cars had a pit with just 1 lap to go, and Marcus Leonard rounds out the top 10, a fantastic drive for the young Canadian. And here are the top 10 in the point standings leaving this race. After Dale Roswell and Rachel Rainsford both got into incidents early in the race, Tony Durbin opens up a huge lead in the points, 40 over Roswell and 48 over Rainsford. Mathematically, only 4 cars could leave the next round with the points lead, because the most points you can gain or lose in a Master Cup Series race is 61. Gary Edwards and Alexis Rainsford are tied for 5th in the standings, still very much behind Tony Durbin. Damian Snyder, 87 back. Leonid Roderick, almost 100 points out of the lead. And Arto Kekkonen, he's been running away with Rookie of the Year so far, having won the Karjala GP, has almost sewn it up for him. But Chris Johans, the former Arla champion, sits in 10th. However, there may be some penalties coming for Johans, and if not for Johans, a fine could be issued to his spotter for that silly little swerve into the side of Kurt Pliskin's car during that first yellow. And here are 11 through 20 in the championship, with Lewis Kingston in 11th. It's a very quiet season for Lewis. Stephanie McGlynn in 12th. Kurt Pliskin, a fantastic run for this team. This team expected to be failing to qualify on occasions, but Pliskin showing that he can drive a race car. His form has improved this year. Same with Ross Peterson and Scott Bates. Ryan Naraki sits 16th. Stuart Sandoval, Zach Duff, Drew Eisenman has jumped up in 2 rounds up to 19th in the standings. He was outside the top 27 in points just 2 races ago. Danny Savin rounds out the top 20. What could have been a fantastic finish for him.